Friendships. Do you have them? We all have people in our lives that we call friends, like people in our lives that we don't know what we would do without them. As if without this person right here, it's literally painful for us to live because we're like, yo, we grieve their lack of presence. But do we treasure their presence thereof? So, friendships, what are they? Is it a ship of friends? Is it a ship of people who say we're gonna go somewhere, we're gonna do something together? What is friendships? What are friendships? When I talk about leadership, I say it's joining hand in hand and head in head to go somewhere. Well, friendships is not necessarily joining hand in head to go somewhere like leadership or people coming together to achieve a goal for a business. Friendship is finding the people that's going to be pleasurable to be around during the trip. So, leadership is what you do to lead the ship of Mother Nature, I like to say. Well, lead the ship of your creation, which means whatever it is you're going to create in the world, whether it's an idea, a business, nonprofit, a company, you got to lead that ship. But while you're leading that ship going to where you want to go, make sure you got some friends in that ship. So, which means make sure you have people to have a good time with. So, my definition of friendship is people along the way of life that's going to help you enjoy life. So, you can have a good time. The reason why I say that is sometimes we got friends in our lives, but we don't have good times with them. So, you got to think to yourself, is that really your friend? I talked about vibes last week, energy. Does somebody drain your energy or do they give you more good vibes? Do they fuel you up? Do they encourage you? Do they switch you from the path of shame and into courage by listening to you or by saying something nice? Or are they the type of people that constantly make you feel bad about yourself? So we have to really see that. So leadership is I'm going to lead the ship of Mother Nature, and I put it this way because that's what I do. I like to make things poetic. Leading the ship of Mother Nature towards the destination, saying that whatever creation I'm going to do, I'm going to lead it. This is leadership. Friendship is saying while I'm going there, I'm going to have people that's going to make this experience pleasurable. Now, let's talk about pleasure. Is it a physical sensation, a mental sensation, or a spiritual realization? What is pleasure? What is the difference between pleasure and blissfulness? Let's not get into that. But pleasure is anything that fuels your spirit and doesn't put you in a ill state of mind or a low energy state. That's pleasure. Anything that's beyond or that's beyond the pain of being under low energy, below 200, as I kept talking about last week, which is 200, the emotion of courage. Anything that's below courage is from pleasure to pain. So the first thing you want to see about friendships is, are you around people who keep you in courage because they encourage you, right? So that's the number one thing. Do you feel stronger around your friends or do you feel weaker? This can be analyzed very simply. Like, I do not have to be a friendship expert to say this. As a human being, I obviously know this because we all experience it. Let's say you walk into a room and you have your friends in that ship of that situation, and then your friends are there and you walk in. Do you feel as if your courage rose or did your courage diminish? Right? So let's think about that as it relates to friendship. Do they encourage you? And let's switch it back to yourself. Do you encourage your friends? And you're like, okay, I thought it had to do with them, not with me. Well, it has to do with you too. So friendships is about somebody who keeps you above. First of all, you got do it for yourself, but somebody who does not take you below the calibration or the frequency state of 200, which is courage. So if you get in a ship of celebration, like, yo, I'm gonna go on a cruise, and then you get on this cruise and you were supposed to be vacating, but the BS just seemed to like follow you around throughout the whole trip, as if from the staff to the people there to everyone else seemed to be like they're the problem, right? And you never met any of these people in your life. So you were trying to escape your life. So you went somewhere else to another ship, but it happened to be a cruise, right? I'm going to go on a vacation, right? So sometimes you might be in your friendship situation, and you're like, they're draining me. Their energy is draining. So I need to escape. So you're like, I'm going to go to a cruise. This is an analogy as well. A cruise meaning I'm going to go somewhere where I can take a break from the friendships that have been draining me. And then you go on the cruise, yet you thought that because you left, I'm going to go on a vacation, you were going to not, right? So sometimes you might be in your friendship situation. However, you found out that no matter where you go, no matter where ship you're trying to get into, that you're still drained. And then in your mind, you're like, what's wrong with me? Well, maybe we have to step back and look at your ship. So one of the major things we don't talk about when we're talking about our friends is that we don't talk about what we have to do in the situation. So we don't talk about our perspective, our flaws. We talk about their flaws as if they, but it seems like even we all do this. We get to the point where we don't even talk about what we had to do. Are we the energy drainers, right? Are we the people who are also bringing their vibrations down? We don't talk about that. But then again, we also don't talk about is our perceptions and our ideas, or our, like, the things we're holding up against them or holding up against our old friends, are coming up to our relationships. So you leave your friendships here and you go to a cruise. So you want to take a break from your friends to hang out somewhere else. And everybody seems to be the problem. And then you go somewhere else, everybody seems to be the problem. It seems like everywhere you go, you find people who are the problem. Why does everywhere I go, other people are the problem? Maybe the way your being or your state of being is in the past, and the problems of the past keeps repeating because you're expecting that from those people. There's a very interesting quote that really sticks with me is, you're gonna get what you expect. So I don't have expectations anymore, I have standards, because expectations limit what I'm gonna get out of whoever I deal with, because it's what I expect. But if I just have standards, then I could just compare what they give me with what I accept. You see, expectations is I'm dictating what you should be like. Standards is be however you want. However, I'm going to have to compare that to who I am and what I believe in. And then in our relations, I'm going to have to make a decision whether who you are matches with who I am creating myself to be. But when our expectations are so apparent, wherever we go, this person must be my way or the highway, we tend to find flaws instead of letting things flow. But the truth is because of our flaw that we're seeing so many other flaws. So just as much as we talk about friendships and relations to, is the person encouraging you or discouraging you? The question you want to ask yourself is, are you the discourager? First, we got to get in touch with that. One of the major things I learned about this week is that growth, and this is within me, does not come in hiding the facts about yourself, but it's in facing the facts and realizing that the facts are only true based on how long you empower the facts, right? So the fact about yourself is you might have some ill habits. Like I was looking at myself and I was like, yo, when I really compare on who I am on a flow perspective, I love my spirit and who I am. Like, I love what I stand for. I love how I'm letting Jesus work through me. and be in my full mission. And I'm like, I love that. But when I look at my flaws, I'm like, based on the flowing person that I am, these flaws shouldn't exist. So sometimes I look at them, they make me really uncomfortable, and I don't like them at all. And I think to myself, yo, are very, this is very flawed. And lately, today I wrote a list of flaws in my journal, which I recommend you get. And I have to be real with myself here. Now, you think I'm doing this just for you. Well, I'm going back when the flow, what I like to say is flow is when I'm in the spirit, which means when I come with the intention of doing good and sharing good stuff to the world, I flow, which means I get things of wisdom to tell me where to go. But then if I don't apply that to myself, then it's meaningless. So when I say something, I try to take it and use it for my own. So this message is for me. And I was really like, yo, I have some character flaws. I got to get in touch with them so I can convert them into the flow. Now, flow, this is a, what is it called? Is it acronym or whatever? I've made it fully living on wisdom. Now, I want you to write this one down and don't steal it as your, I guess you can. Don't do it. Say the holistic motivator came up with it. Flow, fully living on wisdom. What that means is when you're in the flow, you're living in communication with all the spiritual information available to you. All the wisdom of God is available to you when you're in the flow. That's why the flow state is when you're doing what you're doing with such focus, intention, goals that you became one with whatever it is you're doing. I'm in the flow state. You could be working and be in the flow state. So I say living your life in the flow state is when you fully live on the wisdom of God, which means everything that you do is in accordance to the principles of God, which are not just laws that create things in the world, but laws that create us. I was like, how can I be more in the flow and less in my flaws? Then I realized that my flaws is a result of my past conditioning, past programming, past traumas. Also, ways to deal with other people's flaws. That one, thank you God for that one. My flaws are not just flaws because of the past things, but they're actually ways to deal with other people's flaws. So in trying to deal with flaws, we get more flaws. Like sometimes to deal with a toxic person, we kind of have to be toxic because you so toxic. So one of the great things I like about myself, but then I see about myself that doesn't quite work, is when I'm able to go at peace when somebody gets really angry, right? I'm able to talk really calm and understanding. But then I realized that if that person puts that fire of anger so much, it burns me up. It burns me up until I get super angry. So I gave into it at the end of it. So your ability to resist giving in to the energy state, don't go down to their level. They said that all the time, but it's actually factual, as in don't go down to their energy level. So sometimes I'm in courage, I'm in, creation, and somebody's in anger, and then they keep going anger, 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 anger. And then I switch from that, and then now I'm in anger, right? That's because I've let the flaw become my flaw to deal with their flaw. Because if you're screaming at me and I'm showing peace, although that's strength and understanding and compassion, to you, I might be thinking you think I'm weak, so I think I have to be angry at you so you don't think I'm weak. So I'm living in flaws to combat your flaws and revealing my flaws along the way, instead of being in the flow, which is fully living on wisdom, showing compassion, forgiveness, and understanding. So friendships can be very tricky, but what's very important is that we see our flaws. Now, in talking about friendships, I'm going to talk about some of my flaws that I don't like. So, here it is. One of the things I do is I have to be super vulnerable, right? I don't have to be, but I get to be, right? I get to serve. So, one of the things I learned about myself and my friendships is that I'm looking back. who I am now, and I'm like, how many friends do I have that are really close friends? And I really thought about it. I was like, dang, I've known a lot of people in my lifetimes, but I don't have a lot of deep relationships with people. And I'm like, what about myself that caused me to not have? Because I've had a lot of deep relationships. Somewhere along the way, we've detached, and I've never heard from these people again. We didn't leave on a bad page. I didn't break the relationship. It just seems like they're doing their thing and I'm doing my thing. And I'm like, okay, this is normal. People grow. You switch in life, and you can't hang around everybody at every stage of your life. There is a season for everything, a wise man once said. I'm like, okay, I get that. I was like, but right, people grow, people go places, but at the same time, there are friendships you still should have in your life. Then I'm thinking about my relationship with my family. I'm like, how's my relationship with my younger siblings and my brothers and sisters? And I'm like, how close am I to them? I'm like, not that close. So then I'm going back. I'm looking at my childhood. Then I remember when I was a kid, my you all had MySpace, right? My MySpace page was called Mr. Lonely. So I realized that from a young age, my introverted personality, my ideas of abandonment and detachment as a young child has caused me to a lot of time detach from others to work on me and just be introverted, and some people would say self-centered, but I say centered to build the self, to the point where even if I have not much people that I talk to, right? How many people do I get a text from on a personal level? Hey Ed, how you doing today? Like, not that much. Last week, how many people text me how you doing today? Not that much. But I used to think how many people text me. Then I say, well, how many people did you text? So I realized that my level of growth was not in blaming people, but it was with coming in touch with my flaws and realizing that, sometimes I don't text people back. Sometimes I don't text people fast enough. I don't call them back. Or sometimes I don't make the dedication to hang out with certain people I should. Or sometimes I shun the people that I love. Then I'm like, what's wrong with that? Then I'm like, okay, these are flaws. How do I turn them into flow? So in doing this work, I'm able to change. Now I could just keep all this to myself. Now this is vulnerable, right? Now you know about it, which I like and don't like, which means I want you to know, but I don't want you to know about me. You see how that is? It's like we want other people to grow, but we don't want to be vulnerable. But you see, you don't have to be me, right? You don't have to go on social media and tell everybody about your business, right? Because we all don't have that mission to do that on this scale, but you can do it with yourself, right? So you don't have to go to the Facebook, but you could go to the Book of Faces, right? Now, this journal is the Book of Faces. Now you're like, what is this journal of Book of Faces, Ed? Let's think about how many faces have you had in your lifetime? Somebody might say, I've only had one face, Ed. Well, when it was young time, at some point I had acne. One time I was light skinned, but now I'm dark skinned. One time I'm dark and now I'm light. Or I had facial hair, I didn't have facial hair. So my face did change, it evolved. I had baby hair, now I don't have baby hair. I had edges, now my edges gone. I had the tape, now it's all the way back. Uh, so we like, my face has changed. Well, that's not the face I'm talking about. The Book of Faces is your persona, right? So persona meaning face, personality meaning many faces. So this is a book of your persona, a book of many faces, which means all the different faces and phases. Ooh, the faces and phases are in your journal, in the Book of Faces. And what that is over time, as you go back and look at yourself and look at your growth and look at the things you wrote about yourself, the flaws, the flows, you'll be like, okay, I saw the face here. I kind of don't like this face right here, right? So you're like, man, do I need to put on makeup or something? Here's the thing about your face. Makeup doesn't work on that face that I'm talking about, but you can make up a new face, which means makeup whatever makeup you put on your face doesn't work with your spirit, your being, your personality, but it works when you make up yourself. And you're like, how do I make myself up? You can make yourself. Well, I know my flaws. Now, sometimes I don't even keep my word sometimes. I hate that. I don't even want to say it. But how many of you guys don't keep all of your word? We all have these flaws as human beings. Then I realized, hey, where do I keep my word and where do I not? Where don't I keep my word? Well, I say, okay, most times I keep my word when I don't have any guilt. Then I'm like, when I get guilty for something, I get into shame, and that somehow stops me from keeping my word, and that gets me in more guilt and shame. Then I'm like, oh, it's not that I don't keep my word, it's that I'm operating at guilt and shame too much. And you're like, what's wrong with guilt and shame? Well, they're the lowest energy frequencies, the lowest of the lowest. Anything lower than that is close to death. That's why if you shun somebody from society, shun somebody from their culture, put them in jail, or do something to shame them, it takes a lot of courage to get out of that. So imagine if you're around your friends and they keep you in shame, right? So how many times that you call somebody? I'm gonna tell you what I mean by not keeping a word or something. It could just be as simple as, yo, I'm supposed to link up with you, we ain't link up, right? It ain't nothing like, yo, I'm an evil guy who lies to people and manipulate. No, that's not. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying sometimes you say you're gonna do one thing, but you don't do it. Well, maybe you're too guilty, right? And then some people know how to use the sort of guilt to break you down and get you into shame. Now, these are the friends where they probably don't know better and they're just humans. So you might have to verbalize this to them, not necessarily just cut them off because they keep cutting you with guilt. It just means some people you have to allow them space to grow, and other people's are just manipulative. I ask God for the discernment and wisdom to know the difference between the two. Um, uh, some people will use guilt to shame you. I found out that when you're about to call somebody you haven't called in a long time, the first thing you're gonna say, "I'm sorry, I never called you. Uh, I know I was supposed to call you yesterday. We were supposed to link up and we didn't." That shame usually stop you. So I realized. So right now, instead of focusing on my flaw, I'm thinking about, yo, how do I get out of shame as quick as possible and into courage, right? How do I get out of shame and into courage? By encouraging myself every day. So literally, sometimes I have to say, "Yo, Ed, you're growing. You have space to grow. Hey, you're just human. I know, Ed. This does not look good right now. It do not look good. You messed up, but you gonna get better. You're gonna do better because you've done better before. Your heart is at the right place, Ed. Hey, I know this is very shameful. You look at the past, but the past is in the past. And with the present, you can build up a new version of you. And that's what keeps me going. That's what's doing the growth, right? So you ask, if you meet somebody who's at somewhere you think that you want to be, and you ask them, yo, how did you get to where you got right now? So a lot of times what you're expecting is, what did you do? Like, what were the steps? Like, what did you figure out? What did you do? And they're probably going to tell you a couple of things, but they're still not going to really help you, because the you might go do exactly what they did, but it still didn't work for you. Well, the internal conflicts is the problem, right? I'm talking about, you got to be aware of the minute things from how childhood affect you in the present moment, so you can realize when you're just being a kid, right? When you're just being a kid. How about here's a principle, right? I don't know how many of you may still live with your parents or something like that, right? And let's think, whatever attitudes that you get from them, maybe they're not the best to be living with. And you're at a point of your life, you're like, yo, I need to do something for my life. I need to be better. I need to get out of here, right? And you're thinking to yourself, bruh, why do they gotta act like this? Like, why do they gotta be like this? Why do they gotta try me like that? But then you can also say is, yeah, they are acting like this, but hey, I got a roof over my head and a place to stay. And then you can also say, hey, they don't owe me anything, right? They're actually blessing me, even though they have some flaws that I don't flow with, they still don't owe me this, right? They're still doing good for me. And hey, I'm still the master of my destiny and the master of my fate, which means I must do what I need to do to get what I want. And I must not depend on them to do what I must do for myself. And I'm grateful that they are adding value to me. So regardless of their flaws, I'm gonna keep flowing because that's how I can create my life. And then you're gonna see your flaws and how you react to them. Hey, am I snapping at them because that's how I've snapped at them when I was a kid? Or am I ignoring and not talking to this person because that's how I did it when I was a kid? And then you look at how you deal with your immediate circle, and then see how you're dealing with your friends, and that's gonna tell you a lot about why you're the way you are. Now, the ability to verbalize that, I realize that though it's really cool, and sometimes I share with some people that I really care about and that I want to be 100% with, I share with them in that way. But it's best to just communicate that with yourself. Information about yourself can is not great to be shared to everybody because some people are going to use that against you, right? They're going to put it in their tools to break you down when they feel like they need to. So some things you got to keep to yourself for your growth. You don't have to share it to everybody, right? It just so happens that I'm on this platform and I'm happening to do it. And by the way, make sure y'all send me a text now, 561-510-9605. 561-510-9605. If you want to continuously get these reminders, uh, breathing breaks, quotes, all types of good stuff to help you stay in your courage. All right. Like I said, I'm just flowing. I'm going to have to apply these things to my own life. So you're like, what? You got to apply them? Yeah. Where I'm growing with you. Duh. So you're like, just because I know. No, the thing is, we expect too much of ourselves. I mean, like, what do you mean? You're not supposed to have good standards? Don't expect yourself to turn your flaws into flow in one night, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Shoot, it took you 25 years to be like this. If it took you 25 years to be like this, how in the world, Facebook just shut off. If it took you 25 years to be like this, how you gonna do it in 5 hours? You can't be so hard on yourself. Lately, I've realized that the greatest gift to me has been patience and compassion. And you're like, patience and compassion. Trust me, I don't wake up every day and be completely happy about where I'm at in life. But I wake up every day like, yo, I'm creating it. So somebody says, some people wake up with the things that they want. They got the house, the car, the money, the job. Probably got a nice girlfriend, or maybe if they're not into the girlfriend thing, they got multiple girls. So in their head, they're like, yo, I'm living the life. Gina's up. Gene is eating, right? But Mary's not. So Gene is eating and Mary is spiritually not eating. And you're like, what do you mean by that? Which means Gene got all his physical needs taken care of, but on a spiritual, psychological, mental level, Gene has not been there for Mary, which is his girlfriend. So Gene, although Gene thinks he got it all figured out, he hasn't uh, created the best friendship with the person that's most important in his life. So Gene might go his marry this girl, live a life with this girl, and end up not being happy because Gene focused on things more than he did on himself, on his friendships, and on his way of being. So here's a realization that I came into connection with and into acceptance is the fact that although I am flawed, I am still in the flow. Although I am flawed, I am still in the flow. And you're like, what does that mean? It just sounds good, right? Well, I'm flawed is my human self. I'm flawed, but hey, at any time, I can be the holistic motivator for real. Now you're like, it's not a facade, it's a connection. When I intentionally come here and say, yo, I'm gonna add value to somebody's life, And this morning I was like, I'm gonna talk about friendships. You think I wrote down what I'm gonna talk about? You think I had it scheduled out, figured out, finalized? I hadn't. I didn't have it. I promise you, I really didn't. But what I did have was that intention that, yo, I'm going to tap into the wisdom of God. And when I come here, whatever I say is going to be of value to not only you, but me. And then I do it. So I still can flow, which means I still can see the things about me I don't like. I can flow to see my flaws. And in seeing my flaws, I can turn my flaws into a flow, fully living on wisdom, using what you know as what you do. Now, what's wisdom? Application of knowledge. So, fully living on wisdom means fully living on the application of what you've learned. But what's most important is fully living on the communication from the divine. That's fully living on wisdom. Because what you've learned, the Bible says the wisdom of man, what you've spiritually downloaded is the wisdom of God. So that's why sometimes you know, hey, that's not the right thing. And you're like, how do I know this? How do I know this? Then you get a confusion because you're like, dang, I can't believe I know this and I'm not doing it. Then you're like, where does this come from? And then you're like, I cannot believe I know this, but I'm not doing it. So you're looking at your flow and you're looking at your flaws. And you're like, I can't believe this. Trust me, story of my life. It's like, yo, I know this, but I'm not doing it. So you're like, what's the gap between the knowing and the doing? Well, pain is like that thing that says, yo, something is out of order, and unless you rearranged it, you're going closer to death. And you're like, oh no, I can't die. I don't want to feel pain right now. And also, pain is when your energy is below 200, when you're not acting in courage. So pain is when you're in shame and guilt and fear and pride. That's pain. Fear, shame, and guilt and pride. That's pain. And you're like, man, I'm in pain. So you're like, what's the purpose of pain? Well, the purpose of pain is to get you to be in touch with your flaws so you can get in the flow so you can tell your chi where to go. So you can turn your flaws into a flowing, so you can turn all the stuck energy, right, into a flow that's going to help your vibration go higher. So pain says you're knotted up, do something. So pain says open up your heart. Pain says stretch it out. Pain says get in touch with this. Pain says breathe into it. Pain says, yo, stop eating what you're eating or stop eating when you're eating. Pain says do something so you can flow again. Pain says something is stuck and I need it to flow. So you got to take an action to allow it to flow. And unless you do that, I will not transmit from flaw into flow. So pain is indication that you need to do something different. But when it arises, there's something called the law of diminishing intent. So let's say I got cut and it started gushing out. I'm like, oh my God, it's gushing out. It's gushing out. And then I'm holding the gush. I'm like, I better put some alcohol on this and a Band-Aid. But I've held it long enough, or I've just kept focusing on it, held it long enough, and keeps bleeding. Some people hold it long enough till it stops bleeding and becomes a scab. Some people let it bleed out till they die. And other people put the alcohol and put the Band-Aid. Now, the person who lets it bleed out till the scab might get an infection. The person who lets it bleed out completely might die. I don't know based on where that cut is. But the person who cleans up the wound and patches up has a faster recovery state. Now, some people are dying slow, which means they got some pain in their life and they never deal with it, which means they're slowly gushing out blood, right? And their heart is not pumping enough blood. So they're heartbroken. And other people, they see it gushing out and they say, I'm bleeding. You know what? I'm just going to hold on to it and I'm going to hold this pain until it becomes a scab, right? And then the scab heals for a little bit, but it's not really healed because it's still a scab. It's healing. right? So traumas, healing traumas, and then at some point you got tired of holding it, and you got tired of seeing the scab, and you go back and you're like, oh, there's a scab there. Then you start picking at it. Some people just like to pick on their scabs of pain. Like, oh, let me pick this scab back. Why do we like picking scabs? We're gonna go a little deep here, but this is also, you're gonna relate to this. We pick scabs because it feels good just as much as it hurts. Didn't hurt as much as the first time, but there's something about pain that also feels good. And you're like, what? Pain feels good because it can become pleasurable, right? That's, I'm not gonna go into it. That's self harm, right? That's when pain feels good because pain is better than feeling nothing at all. You're like, what? Well, if you feel no love, it's better to be in pain than to be in love. Not literally better, but in the form of the way that you're logically seeing it. So you're like, I'm in pain, so that must be better. At least I can feel something. So we keep scabbing our pains so we could feel alive. So we might have had a traumatic experience and we get in the same circumstance again, then we just scab at it. We brought it up again. That's the cycles. I've endured cycles in my life over and over, and I'm like, why do I keep scabbing at this pain? I thought I was over it. I thought I was fully healing. Well, here's the thing. If you got scabs from 5 years ago, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to learn to switch from focusing on the pain to focusing on how to get the pleasure, right? And then focusing on how to heal that. And then adopting a new philosophy that when I get cut, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some alcohol. I'm going to put that bit on it. And I'm going to get me a Band-Aid. I'm going to put that right there on that boy right there. And I'm going to leave that boy alone, right? I'm not going to touch it, right? And if I know myself, then I might have to put something around it. Somebody said that their grandma used to put aloe in their fingers so they won't suck their thumb. So if you've been sucking your thumb like a pacifier to ignore your pain or to pick the scabs, you got to put some aloe on it. So you're like, okay, Ed, I get it. What does this mean from a actual application perspective? Okay. You figure out your flaws. You figure out the things about your life that you didn't like, all the traumas, all the things that you've adopted, the flaws that you built to combat the flaws of others, and you decide yo, you know what? Let me wash this off. You're like, how do I wash? Well, the alcohol of forgiveness and compassion is a good way to wash the scabs of your pain. The alcohol of forgiveness and compassion is the best way to wash away the infection of your pain. And you're like, what does that mean? Well, first of all, you got to forgive the flaw of whatever other people and however they acted upon you, and just understand that unless they worked on themselves, on getting into the flow state and listening to God and doing the work, they wouldn't have learned this. And you could see it in yourself like, yo, until I started doing this, I was just as toxic and I wouldn't have learned this. So that in itself should be enough as a basis to forgive them. Not to accept what they're doing, but to forgive what they did and forgive yourself from letting it be or for being in that circumstance. You're like, wait, forgive myself for being there. Well, you might not know it, but you might be holding up against yourself because you were there. And you probably had none. You couldn't change that situation as it relates to what they did, but because you were there, you felt like you didn't leave, so you feel bad about not leaving. So we got to forgive them, and we got to be compassionate, but we got to do it to ourselves. But every day, then we have to let that forgiveness get away. We got to let that forgiveness and that compassion be the thing that smoothing things out. That kiss on the forehead after you get your boo-boo, right? That's going to be what forgiveness and compassion is. Sometimes it's going to burn. Thank you, Deja. When you do put the alcohol to start the healing process, sometimes it's going to burn when you decide to put the cream on it, right? Sometimes it burns to heal the pain. But the burning is just an indication that it's working, right? When you look at your flaws and you're like, yo, I don't like this, I gotta deal with it, it means that you're dealing with it, you're growing. That in itself should allow you give yourself a pat on the back. Say, yo, I'm growing places, right? Because I'm letting that communication talk to me. Okay, it's 10:47. This is about the class for today. It's the Holistic Motivator. I want to thank you all for watching Ed Talks Friends. Today I only talk about one aspect of it, but all week, uh, God and I, or the Spirit of God, let me not diminish the word of God, the Spirit of God, which worketh within me, it will be back here to talk about friendships and relationships. I can't wait for it because I need it. Because I want to build the friendships and relationships in my life that not to be proud of, but that I can be encouraged by and encouraging in, right? I'm not trying to be proud of my relationships. Well, I have some good friendships. Yeah, I'm the man. Oh. No, I'm not trying to be that way. I'm just trying to be around people that I share good vibes with, and for them to be around and share good vibes with me. So this whole week, I'm seeking for that growth, and I'm gonna be vulnerable to grow alongside you. But let's say you come here and you listen to this, you go home, you didn't do any journaling, you didn't do the flaw to flow, the flow, the flow thing, right? And you're like, yo, I didn't do the flaw to flow. How do I do it, Ed? What's the secret? I got one homework for you. One homework. And I did it this morning. And I'm gonna share it with you. Make sure you do it. And if you want to get the text of the homework, you gotta text me 561-510-9605. Text me homework so I can text you what it is. Some of you are not gonna do it anyways, but it's okay. I love you anyways. But here's the thing. I don't want you to see my list of flaws. Shame. Who cares? You can see them. But here, look. Flaw to flow. And you're like, this is simple. You're gonna be like, okay, here's the character flaws I need to get out of. No, here's the character flaws I need to get in touch with, that I need to convert into flow. That's it. So flaw to flow. Write all the things you don't like about yourself, and then on the next one, all the things that if you were fully living on wisdom, how would that look like? And every day, prime yourself to live in the flow, to fully live on wisdom, fully living on wisdom. Stay in the flow, stay in the flow, fully living on wisdom. Stay in the flow, stay in the flow, fully living on wisdom. Stay in the flow, stay in the flow, fully living on wisdom. Stay in the flow, stay in the flow, stay in the flow, fully living on wisdom. Stay in the flow, stay in the flow. Maybe that's gonna remind you. Fully living on wisdom. Stay on the flow. Don't just know it, live on it. If y'all enjoyed this moment, as I did, please subscribe to the podcast. And how do you do that? Yo, just go to anchor.fm/Ed Talks, or visit my website, theholisticmotivator.com. And a second way is to just support your boy, right? Let's plant some seeds of encouragement, the good vibes of gratitude. Cash App, Ed Talks. Just hash the money sign, Ed Talks, donate to the podcast. I got I'm gonna leave it on this final note. I was listening to a message from Eric Thomas about how Christians are scared to share their light, or how we now more than ever we all need to share who we are and what we're all about. And I was thinking about my own life and how this last week different things have been on my mind and what has been working with through me, and how I've been able to get out of fear into faith and flowing more, and not allowing what I think that you think that I am, your perception, hinder me from sharing my light. And as I continue doing it, I realize how powerful that is. And it really got me thinking what my mission here on earth. And what I realized was I am here to add value to people's lives, allow you to see something differently that you didn't see because you was looking at this direction. I'm a momentum switcher. Sometimes I come with a battery pack and put it on your chest and say, "Wake up! Let's get that motivation on there." But it's just much I do it for myself every day. So that's why I'm here. That's why my IG's here. That's why the text messaging here. That's why I'm doing everything. Um, and one the other day was like, "Yo, would you do this if you didn't get paid?" And what I realized was, "Yo, I do this every day without getting paid. Like I do it because it's my mission, right?" So support your boy, Cash App Ed Talks. I'm gonna be hosting seminars, workshops online, and what I'm gonna be doing now is a coaching, the daily accountability group alongside coaching. So y'all wanna get a coach? You trying to lose weight? You need the whole holistic to get your body and mind right. Holla at your boy. Don't go to UFit or LA Fitness. Hire me, right? Don't consume the content and then go hire someone else. You see, that's not fair. Consume the content and hire me, right? If you need my services. That's fair, right? But the most important thing is look at your flaws and see how you can convert them into flow. What is a friend? Who is a friend that you would benefit from this episode? Who's a friend? Think about 5 friends that could benefit. 5 friends. That seems like 10. If you do it 2 times, that would be 10 friends, and send them this episode. Okay. Now I know y'all tired of me by now, but I'm gonna be going for real now. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Stay in your power. Remember, you got the unlimited power in you to achieve whatever it is that you want. But belief is the inertia builder. It's the momentum switcher. It's the kinetic energy influencer. It's gonna get you rolling. You believe it, and you're like, "Yo, here's the wisdom I believe." And every day you must fully live on wisdom. And until that happened, the world will forever miss all your talents, all your gifts. Come on now. Y'all so gifted, and all the great things that you got to offer. Man, if I hid my light because I used to talk like this. "Hi everybody. How you doing? Thank you for coming to the Unlimited Power Show. I'm your host, CEO Ambitionist, and I want to thank you for being here today. Today I'm going to talk about living in your purpose." And I used to talk like that. But now I don't talk like that anymore because I'm free. If you don't share your light, you'll never know who you can be at the end of the tunnel. That's my message, and I'm sticking to it. Peace. Field of dreams. Life is a field of dreams. You got to plant the seed to reap the benefits. Yes, sir. Shout out to Deandra. Shout out to Ebony, Deja. Shout out to Mr. Carl. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Hernode. Shout out to Jonathan Spikes. Shout out to Chelsea. Shout out to LaShawn. Shout out to Grounded Urban Mind. Shout out to Ashley Tyranny.